After a crazy few days where you had game one on Sunday and game two on Saturday, the Hurricanes have a break on Wednesday and Thursday before they take on the Devils in game three on Friday in Newark. Now, before we get there, let's take a look back and see what are the earliest takeaways from this series as the Carolina Hurricanes are up 2-0 in round one.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everyday for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also part of the Search Cast as a co-host, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a terrific Thursday edition of the podcast as we kind of look at the early takeaways from the series so far after the Hurricanes are up 2-0 on the Devils. We're going to look at special teams and why that's been a big factor for the Hurricanes so far after two games. Again, take a look at the Hall, Kotkaniemi and Svechnikov line because they've probably been one of the most dominant lines for not just the Hurricanes, but I think overall in the entire series. And then we're going to talk about the roster depth for the Hurricanes because I think this is it's what's being a big part of the team of why you're seeing success so far in this series, which is the fact of how healthy this team is and how much of a factor the fact of how deep this roster is as well, I think goes a long way for the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, looking at the special teams overall, and this is the one main thing I was kind of, looking at, because you guys heard me talk about it pretty much all season, especially in the second half, getting closer to the playoffs, is the two things you really want going for you. That's your special teams, which is mainly your power play and winning on the road. Of course, we're going to see how the Hurricanes do on their road test on Friday when they go up to Newark, but special teams has been kind of a big thing because I've also been talking about, this team's they're a good 5-on-5 team. How are they going to do on the special teams? And this is where it gets very interesting. So the R12th out of the 16 teams, of course, with now everyone officially playing at least one game, the R12th in the entire group with a 16.7%. But luckily for them, the Devils are at 14th with a 0%. Why is that? Well, because the Hurricanes are first at a 100% clip still, of course. We're only talking 5 penalties in 2 games, and one of them was a 4-on-4. So really it was 4 penalties so far that have been with an actual disadvantage, but they are 100% there. While the New Jersey Devils, showing why they were second in the league in the penalty kill, they are fourth with an 83.3%. But I think what's been really helping out for the Hurricanes is that they do have a power play goal, so they got that going from. That's why, New Jersey's at 83.3. But also, of course, we know the Jordan Martin shorthanded goal in game 2 definitely goes a long way as well because, while the Devils are at 0% in terms of their power play, their net negative is in a minus because you did get scored on shorthanded. So while you are over, you still got scored on. So retroactively of how you look at it or just in general, you are at a net negative because you got scored on. And like for the Hurricanes, not going to let that hasn't happened yet. But if you look at the special teams battle, that was kind of one of the big things that a lot of people were looking at was how are the Hurricanes going to stack up special teams wise against the Devils, who were second on the penalty kill, third on the power play in the regular season going into the playoffs. And so far, the Hurricanes have been neutralizing them on the PK. Of course, with them being the number one penalty kill unit in back-to-back seasons, top 3 at least over the last few seasons. It goes to show why Tim Gleason and that group have been, getting better as every season's gone along of making that nucleus so good. That's why you see, Jacob Slavin, as one of the defensive pairs, and you got, the Jordans together and Stalin Martinuk. And then recently you've been seeing, Aho and Jarvis, being a very dynamic force with their two-way game, but also with their offensive ability too. And that's why you're looking at a team who's mainly really a power kill more than a penalty kill for the Hurricanes. But I think with how the special teams have been playing so far in this series, and Sean Keith mentioned in the post-game press conference after game 2, he said, well, we've only given up really 3 even strength goals, but the problem is though you've given up a power play and a shorty in 2 games. So while, yes, 5-on-5 wise, you are playing a little bit better where you're only giving up 3 in that instance. Special teams wise, you've also given up 2, and one of them you are on your own power play. So it's one of those things where, yeah, the even strength is still leaning towards Carolina, but they've also kind of been taking care of the special teams battle. And that's one of the main things I was, curious to see how that was going to play out. Because, the PK is going to be good, but how's the power play going to be? So far, not terrible. At least they got 1, so you'll take that. But the penalty kill is doing their job. And like I said, they scored a shorty in game 2 thanks to Jordan Martinook. So if the Hurricanes are able to get, a power play goal every other game, then that's totally fine. That should be able to work. At least you're kind of building on top of that, not just having one here, waiting for games, have another and stuff like that. But if you do like every other, that's at least a little bit better to where maybe you're not the top power play in the playoffs, but if you're at least in the top half, I think you should be all right. So they are a little bit down now, but I mean, there's a lot of teams that have only played 1 game, so the average is a little bit different. But overall, after 2 games, I think looking at where the special teams are at right now, I think the Hurricanes are in a good spot. Just a couple of games in, we'll see how games 3 and 4 go, and if this thing goes past 4, how's that going to look? How's it going to look in the later rounds of as the playoffs go along? Because then you're looking, okay, the better teams are going to start advancing. Now it's like, okay, how is your special teams going to stack up against those guys? But so far, round 1, it's not terrible for the Hurricanes. Like I said, you're looking at a team who has scored 1 already on their own man advantage. You got a shorthanded as well. So at least you're setting yourself up to have a good special teams, especially against a group where everyone's looking at we all know the Canes are a 5-on-5 team. How are they going to be on special teams? And now you're kind of seeing that they aren't opposing the role on the PK like they're supposed to, but now you're kind of getting that little bit of that extra boost of the power play kind of doing its thing as well. Like I said, they got 1, but at least you're kind of seeing chances. I know in game 2, there was a couple power plays that kind of shot themselves in their own foot. Wasn't really that great. They kind of killed it themselves. But as the game went along, I think the last one was kind of like probably their best power play they had all game, where you saw multiple shots on net. Some of them got blocked. Some went, a little high, but at least they were putting the pucks on the net and actually getting chances. They did get a couple shots on goal there too. So at least progressively as the game went along, it got better. But you hope that game 3, you kind of get back on the score sheet on the power play side of things, because those are the advantage that helps give you a better chance of winning games. Because even if you get 1 or 2 or even possibly 3 chances, if you at least score 1, at least you're setting yourself up to get that win, because that puts a lot of pressure on that team, because now it's like, okay, they got the man advantage. Now they're up on us. How do we stop them? Because now it's 5-on-5. If they're a good 5-on-5 team, and if their power play is rolling, now that's really going to set them up to be a hard thing. So I think now with the pressure on New Jersey going into game 3, you're down 2-0. You've got to at least take 1 at home. I think putting that pressure on them, and I think if they start playing really tight hockey and start committing a lot of penalties, and this is where you take that chance to kind of capitalize on that and give you the opportunity now on your man advantage to go and impose your will there. So if we all know you're a good 5-on-5 team in Carolina, but if you go and put that onto the special teams, especially the power play, I think the Canes give them a better opportunity to put more of pressure, more of a stranglehold on game 3. And if all goes well, then you're looking at a series that's 3-0 Carolina going into game 4 with their backs against the wall, and you got a massive stranglehold on this series. I think that's where, if you look at how that plays out, you're going to be in a good spot. But so far, though, I've been really liking how the special teams have been playing. I said penalty kill's been great. Already scored a goal there. Power plays at least got 1. So you'll take that. Would you want a little bit more than 18%? Of course, but it's 2 games. A lot of teams only played 1. But I think if you at least get 1 every other game, I think it gives you the opportunity to have better chances to impose your will and put the other team on their back foot, because now they're playing to catch up on you. So it should be interesting how game 3 is in New Jersey, but at least special teams wise, I think the Hurricanes have been really putting a good foundation of, okay, this is what we need to do and just need to get better here in certain aspects. But penalty kill wise, they're doing great. Power play, you have scored, but let's just see a little bit more in terms of that aspect. Now, we talk about special teams. How is 5-on-5 play going? Fantastic for the Hurricanes, but I think the line of Hall, Kotkaniemi, and Svechnikov have done just that much more for the Carolina Hurricanes. So stick around, and we'll talk about that second line here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. The NBA playoffs are almost here. Well, they're actually here now. But more importantly, the NHL playoffs. And FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we're going to look at the Kotkaniemi, Hall, Svechnikov line because they've been playing very well for the Hurricanes so far in their series. I think it's probably one of the most dominant or the close to that in terms of both sides of the ice. And looking at the overall, shift reports, line, numbers and stuff like that per natural stat trick, if you're looking at just how those guys have been together, like Andrei Svechnikov right now, total ice time, 30 minutes and 22 seconds, 39 shifts so far in all situations with an average shift length of 46 seconds. Couple of short, 7 short shifts, 6 long ones. Long ones are kind of like, you're getting, minute stuff like that. The ones that are kind of extended, but right now, Andre, 30 minutes and 22 seconds overall time on ice, 39 shifts, seeing good average about 46. Now, if you look at Jesperi Kotkaniemi, 27 minutes and 25 seconds with 38 shifts ranging about 43 seconds. Not too bad in terms of your average length. And for Taylor Hall, 27 minutes and 16 seconds, 38 shifts, looking about an average of 43. And Hall and Kotkaniemi is 5th to the bottom. Hall is 3rd to the bottom in terms of total ice time overall for the entire team. But of course, it comes with power play, certain other, times and stuff like that. So Andre is a little bit higher in terms of that. But if you look at the forward lines as a whole, and this is where it's per national stat trick, it only includes games where the lines were together for 2 or more 5-on-5 face-offs. So when you look at the team as a whole, but just particularly that line of Hall, Kotkaniemi, and Svechnikov, time on ice is in total group on 5-on-5 play, 18 minutes and 10 seconds, 36 chances for, 12 chances against for a Corsi for percentage of 75%. That means they're able to have better puck possession and they've had more chances on the offensive side of the ice, which is really, really good. And if you look at the shots for and shots against, how about 15 shots for that line and 6 against for a shots for percentage of a 71.43. That's the only group that's even 70 or higher. Everyone else is right around the 56.2.5 range. But that second line of Hall, Kotkaniemi, and Svechnikov have been playing so well together. Like I said, you have the widest margin of chances going in your favor because you look at the 36, you're 24 ahead on that. And even the shots for, you're still a good 9 above on that aspect as well. So this is where it's a line where they've just been so effective so far in this series that you can definitely tell when you hear like Trip Tracy, Mike Maniscalco talk to them, you hear from Mike Monaco on ESPN. They talk about how that line's been just so good, and even talking to other beat writers of Corey Laviolette and Ryan Henkel, you hear from them too. It's like that line has been so prominent on the ice for the Hurricanes. You can tell every game that they're making chances, they're creating opportunities, they're putting the Devils in their back foot, with Andrei Svechnikov being that power forward that you need who can create chances but is not afraid to throw the body and make guys turn over the puck. And even Kotkaniemi too, where he's really coming to his own role of being able to play that 200-foot two-way game, but be like that Jordan Staal 2.0 guy, where I think he would fit really well into that, to be that guy who is going to be, hey, we're going to use you for a lot of defensive zone type stuff. Like, you can score, but we know that you're more of a defensive forward, which isn't bad to have. So you've seen him over the course of the season grow into that role more. And I think, whenever Jordan Staal does decide to retire, I think if you give a guy in Jesperi Kotkaniemi would be a good replacement for that defensive center who's going to be doing the bulk of the work of taking care of the other team's, top line. So Jesperi's been playing very well on that side. And then you look at Taylor Hall and how good he's been playing since coming over to Carolina on that blockbuster trade on January 24th. We talk about 31 games. He had 9 goals, 18 assists. He's been playing really well. He's got 4 power play goals. Like, that was during that stretch where they had 5 straight games with a power play goal, and he had 4 of them. Like, he's just come in here and played so well with the system. And, talking to Rod Brindamore before the game on Tuesday, asking about, like, what's Taylor Hall brought to this group that's been so good for this team. And that veteran presence that he brings, even with the leadership group that he has in Rod's, like, the good thing about that is he's not coming in there saying, hey, I'm a former MVP, you need to listen to me. It's just Taylor Hall comes in there and does his job. He's like, okay, how can I help this team in any way that I can? And I think for Rod, it's just, I'm here to help. That's gone a long way in his eyes to see why Taylor Hall is fit in so well with Carolina. And you heard him talk on the What's Chaos podcast of, he doesn't want to keep moving around anymore. He wants to stay in one place for him and his wife and their family, and he's hoping that's Carolina. And honestly, Carolina would be a great place for Taylor Hall to stay, even if it's for a 3-year, $4.5, $5 million. Hey, the cap's going up. You can give him that money, and he'd be a great top 6 guy to have that you can easily slide in there with Jesperi Kotkaniemi, because their chemistry has been so well together. I think that's why you see that line of those 3 together have been playing so well. I think that's what gives you the opportunity to, if you're trying to find a way to unlock Andrei Svechnikov, or at least give him a better, like, okay, we need you to focus on this and do this for your job. I think putting him with those 2 has been really helping. And the fact that Hall has been helping out Kotkaniemi too, because you've seen his game grow exponentially since, January, to where they just kind of know where each other are at. Because you saw in the power play goal for the second goal that Logan Stankoven had in game, 1, where just that chemistry of where they're going to be at really led to that breakout of getting the puck to KK, finds Hall striking up the boards, then Hall firing it over to Stankoven, who got that goal. But it's that built-in chemistry of knowing where each other are at has kind of helped on the power play side of things. So when you look at this line overall for the Hurricanes, like I said, their Corsi 4 is 75. The next Corsi 4 percentage is 63.6, and that's with Carrier, Roslovic, and Robinson, who've had 28 chances for compared to 16 against, and even their shots for are 13-10, which is 56.5. Even like the Jordans and Stankoven line, they're at 46.15 for the Corsi 4 percentage, 24-4, 28 against, but at least their shots for against is the same thing at 13-10. But you look at where, that first line of Jarvis, Aho, Blake, 42.5, where they're having 17 chances for, but 23 against. But at least their shots for are at 56.25 with 9 shots for and 7 against. But you look at that Hall, KK, Svechnikov line, they've been really gelling well together. I think that's been helping them out so much against the Devils, and that's what's kind of been giving them that extra boost as play goes along. So as long as that keeps going for that particular line in general, I think the Hurricanes are going to be in a very good spot, because, like I said, going into the preview of Game 2 is you got that more offensive shooting style of that first line, and then you have the third line is more of that shutdown line who will create some chances, but are mainly there to shut down the top line of the other team and all their good players. But then you got the nice hybrid second line where you have the power forward in Svechnikov, who can shoot but is not afraid to throw the body. Taylor Hall, also not afraid to throw the body, but does create some chances with his offensive game because he's a former MVP. And then you got KK, who's not afraid to throw the body around either. He's a good defensive center who's able to create outlet passes to the other guys and setting them up. So you got all 3 of them kind of working together in a 2-way game. That just fits so well, and I think that's where you're kind of seeing that benefit of how these 3 have been so dynamic in what they've done, and it's kind of almost going under the radar if you're not really paying attention to what's going on. So I think one of the takeaways for this series is this second line of Hall, KK, and Svechnikov. If this line keeps going, I think the Hurricanes are going to be in a good spot to be in, where you continue to put on that wave of just 4 lines rolling on the Devils, because the Devils right now, in terms of depth, aren't where Carolina's at right now. The fact that Carolina's got the most healthiest team they've had in multiple seasons, that having this line in particular clicking as they are only can be a better benefit for the Hurricanes as the playoffs go along. So it should be interesting. Now, talking about the Canes roster depth, well, got to look into that a lot more, because you're seeing scoring coming all around this roster, and especially with the guys who aren't even playing right now. That's just how deep this team is. So stick around as we'll talk about that here in a second on a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you can stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked on AHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked on AHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we're going to look at the depth of the entire Hurricanes roster because of just where they're at right now. Because you look at how this is probably the most healthiest Hurricanes team that we've seen going into the playoffs in a long time. Because you lost Jesper in Game 82 last year. You lose Andrei Svechnikov just 2 weeks after the trade deadline 2 seasons ago. Seth Jarvis was hurt last year as well after, tearing his shoulder up and all that stuff and having a broken finger in round 1. He played over 60 games last year with a beat-up shoulder. But you're looking at this season of where, they were able to rest guys, get them ready to go. And I think with the fact of you're looking at a Hurricanes roster that's now having to rely on guys who haven't really played a lot this season, and you're so far not going losing guys, you're setting yourself up to have a really deep team that I think is probably one of the most deepest on the entire playoff slate. Because you're looking at guys who hadn't even played yet. It's Mark Jankowski, Tyson Jost, like those guys haven't even played yet. You're looking at the defense. I mean, you have Riley Stillman's an extra. You have it's like you got Morrow, you got Nikisha. Of course, Nikisha hasn't fully signed yet, but that's a whole different story for another time. But he's kind of there too. But you're having all these extra healthy scratches that can help you get ready, for a longer playoff run. So I think that's what's giving you the opportunity where even though they did send Stillman to Chicago, at least you have Morrow, you got Nikisha, and you've got, like I said, Jost and Jankowski. You're putting yourself in a good spot where anything can happen. You can plug guys in where you need them to do that. I think with that, you're being able to give yourself an extra variables of creating different matchups if you really need it on a game-to-game basis. But if you look at the roster too, you're seeing guys who are making impacts. They're not just the big names, but the depth players. I mean, Jordan Martinook is leading the Hurricanes in points right now with 3. 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. He's a +3, which is number 2 on the roster behind Jalen Chatfield's +4. But Martinook also, has a shorthanded goal, which is the only one, of course. And, he's tied with Logan Stankoven in game-winning goals. But, Martinook's doing that. Taylor Hall's got 2 assists. He's a +1. So Logan Stankoven's got 2 goals. He's a +1. That's with on the line. He's getting a power play goal in even strengths with the Jordans. Dmitry Orlov's got an assist. He's +2. Jalen Chatfield scored the first goal of the entire series. How about him being a +4? Jordan Stahl's a +2. He hasn't been on the score sheet, but he's been impactful. Shane Gostisbehere's got a goal. He's a +1. Jacob Slavin's a +1. You're kind of seeing the fact that a lot of these guys are pluses. The only minus is Brent Burns, and that's pretty much it. Other than that, you got Jarvis and Blake, they're evens, along with Sebastian Aho on that first line. But then pretty much everyone else is either +1 to +4 in Chatfield. And that just goes to show the depth of you got third line scoring 3 goals alone right there. And then you got a bunch of, you got 2 assists right there. You got Taylor Hall getting, 2 points. You got Dmitry Orlov getting an assist. You got Slavin, Aho, Rosovic. Those guys are getting their points there. Shane Gostisbehere scoring on the defensive side of things. Like, you're seeing a lot of contributions up and down the roster. Eric Robinson, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Andrei Svechnikov scored an empty netter, and so did Seth Jarvis, but they don't ask Cal, they just ask how many. And then you look at goaltending. I mean, you still have Pierre Kochetkov on your bench, but Freddie Anderson has been playing so well, saving 48 of 50 shots in the last 2 games combined, only allowing 2 goals. He's got a 1 goal against average and a save percentage of .960. That's really huge if you're the Carolina Hurricanes, because even with Freddie playing so well, you still got Kochetkov that you can easily turn to if you need to give Frederick Anderson some rest, because game 1 and 2 were the first time he's played consecutive games since, the playoffs in 2024, because Anderson had 4 starts and missed over 30-something games again due to injury. But at least you're kind of, even with him playing so well, you can still go to your other netminder who's did the yeoman's work once again for back-to-back seasons. But you look at the depth of the Hurricanes, you're getting points up and down the roster. There's a couple of guys who haven't put a point up yet, but you're still getting, third line's getting some goals and assists. The second line too, Jarvis got an empty netter, Blake's got an assist, Aho's got an assist. Like, you're seeing, even the defense is scoring goals too, Chatfield and Jesperi and all of that. And you're getting assists from a bunch of guys too. So you're seeing up and down this roster, everyone's contributing in their own way. Like I said, you have the whole first line's an even, but then you have Brent Burns is the only minus it's a -1. That's not bad for only 2 games that he's a -1. And then basically everyone else is +1 to +2 with, Martinook being a +3 and Jalen Chatfield's a +4. That means the Hurricanes are putting themselves in a good spot where you've outscored the Devils 7-2 in 2 games, and most of it in like 95% of your roster, almost 98%, are all plus or better, or just even and better, which is good. It's a good thing to have in 2 games. And like, you look at the Devils side, you have Jack Hughes is out. They also got Siegenthaler who's out. They just lost Dylan. They just lost Luke Hughes. Who knows if they're going to be back? Cody Glass is hurt and he came back to play, but how was he effective? So the Devils are playing with a bunch of guys that were hurt going into the playoffs, or guys who just got hurt in the playoffs. So what's that look like for them? Of course, no one really wants to see guys hurt, but that's just, the Hurricanes have the advantage of having a healthier team where now you have at least 2 extra forwards. You have 2 extra defensemen that you have waiting in the wings to come in to help out if you need certain matchup, capabilities of, hey, we need Mark Jankowski in here to be a 4th line center. He's a big body. He can definitely help out that way. Or, hey, we need Scott Morrow for his more of a 2-way that we definitely need, maybe because a guy is kind of banged up or he's tired. At least that way, for Rod and the coaching staff, you can kind of interchange guys where you need to. And I think for the Devils, that's where it's hurting them, because they don't have those guys. So I think for Carolina, that gives them the extra advantage, the extra boost in this series, is that they can go and plug and play guys where they need to for special matchups or special tendencies that maybe they need to do this for a certain style of game because you're going into New Jersey. Maybe things are different. Maybe you need that extra, boost of a guy who's been, kind of rest up for a couple of days. Maybe if someone's tired or kind of banged up a little bit and you don't want to chance them getting hurt even more, like, hey, you're kind of banged up. Let's give you the night off, just to make sure for precaution reasons. Then you can plug this guy in to at least take as like, hey, we might just need you for this one game. Go in and do your thing. And they can do that. And they can bring the other guy back in. So I know guys don't want to sit out, but if it's precaution reasons, like, hey, it's this one game. Let's figure it out and get you back in for the next one. They can go and do that. They don't have to rely on, hey, this guy's banged up. We're going to have to roll him out regardless and hope nothing else happens. The Hurricanes, I'm not saying will have to do that or have to do that, but at least they have that option if it's there to need be. So I think for the Hurricanes, the roster depth they have right now with everyone being healthy or healthier to whatever extent they're at, I think that goes a long way for the Hurricanes. I think it's what's going to help them in the playoffs in the long run. Well, guys, that will be a Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making your first listen to the day. Your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm at OneShoeZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at DZacharyMartin, where you can check my links in my bios and where you can check out all my written content, especially at thehockeywriters.com for all things Carolina Hurricanes related. Also, if you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For Locked On Hurricanes, well, we're on Google, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read it on the show. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, Hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with all other Keniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Thursday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Thursday. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.